Thanks, Jack. If something's a burning question for you and it can't wait until the end, please put your hand up in the Zoom function, and either myself or Jack will endeavour to get the answer to your question as soon as possible. And we will also ask everyone to put their cameras on, hey Keith, for reporting purposes later. And we love to see your smiling faces anyway. So do we have anyone from State NRM on the call yet, Jack? Have you seen?
Yes.
Yep.
There's Deb Slater-Lee, our Program Manager. Thank you, Deb, for joining us today. I'd also like to acknowledge Caroline Hughes, the other part of our team on her other day. She's wearing her LCC hat today. Nice to see you.
Thanks, Deb. Thanks for dropping in today. So today we're going to be hearing from the wonderful Sam Marwood. Sam is an environmental entrepreneur. He has founded and sat on the board for multiple nature-focused businesses, and most notably established and co-founded farm matchmaking social enterprise Cultivate Farms and fundraising platform Edge Pledge. Sam is now CEO of Odonata Foundation and completed a Bachelor of Applied Science in Environmental Science at the University of Melbourne. After graduating, he spent 12 years working for the Victorian Government in environmental policy. Sam is going to talk to us today about unlocking the potential of eDNA and the possibilities and opportunities that exist in WA for our community landcare groups. So I'm going to hand over to you, Sam. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Casey, and thank you, Jack, for inviting me. It was great. I got to go to WA late last year as well and present at the conference, which was brilliant, and need more excuses to get over. I'm based in Central Victoria, in Kyneton, but I've got a bit of a focus on the nation in conservation, and what I'm going to do is share a presentation. We've got some ideas crafted from that session in Perth in late December with the WA Landcare team, and we thought we'd package it up and present it to you. So today I'm going to talk about Great Australian Wildlife Search, and then I've got some ideas, and maybe it's probably more of a discussion than necessarily landing on a solution, but some ideas on how we can support landcare groups in fundraising for conservation utilising this eDNA technology. So I'll just click here to share the screen. I'll assume everyone can see. Yell out if you cannot. So it's the Great Australian Wildlife Search. It's a program we set up a couple of years ago with our good friends at eDNA, and particularly Andrew Weeks. So he's been working with us on our genetics for threatened species. So we do a lot of work across the country on improving the health of threatened species, and a lot of them are inbred. So we spend a lot of time on genetics, getting the genetics right, and that's what Andrew spent many years with us, probably 15 years working on that with us. And in that time, Andrew learnt and pioneered and worked on eDNA technology, which, if you haven't seen, you take a water sample and it can tell you the wildlife that have been on or near the waterway in the last 2 weeks. So you send it off and it goes through a machine and it analyzes against a reference library of DNA. And I'll talk through that technology and how that all works. But basically, the water is the vector in which the DNA travels through the landscape that we pick up and hopefully identify wildlife in the area. So to me, this is a revolution in wildlife monitoring, and I know a number of groups are doing this already. And we as Odonata Foundation thought that it's a great thing for us to give support and guidance to the public, to landcare groups, to others in this space, to say, how do we get more eDNA sampling done? And then maybe how do we use eDNA and the Great Australian Wildlife Search to also create the Great Australian Fundraising, or the Fund Search, which is a bit of a cheeky angle to this presentation for you. But as Katie said, I used to work in government and in Victoria in policy, and I left because I found so many of us are dependent on government support for conservation, which is great and absolutely the role of government. But I had ideas, and I've had ideas for nature my whole life, and the idea of pursuing that and encouraging others to pursue and finding other sources of revenue to get on and do was the thing that drove me. And I met so many other like-minded people, and that's where Nigel Sharp, who's the founder of Odonata, that's his driver. to find alternative and new sources of funding to support all the work you do. So with that mindset of trying eDNA, creating the Great Australian Wildlife Search, we're thinking through, and this is what we want to unpack with you all today, is how could we use this eDNA technology to support you in fundraising for the projects you know you need to get on and do, and provide an additional revenue stream. If we could do that, I'll be very, very happy, and I guess that's the proposal today. So the purpose here is, as I said, to propose a method for Landcare groups to fundraise while finding more about wildlife. Sounds pretty good. So take a step back. Odinata Foundation, we do a lot of work. This is an eastern barred bandicoot you can see here being released at a farm called Tiverton, which is a 1,000 hectare sanctuary and working sheep farm sort of in the southwest of Victoria. And it's fully predator proof, and it's actually, I think it's the largest feral-free area in Victoria now. And we've got bandicoots, eastern barred bandicoots and eastern quolls running around that sanctuary. So our vision is to create a network of these sanctuaries, not because we love these fences necessarily, it's because we know these fences work whilst we all work to figure out how to stop foxes and cats destroying everything. And so this network of sanctuaries is what we're building, and we're thinking more and more over in WA as well with those sanctuaries. But our mindset is build them, get the genetics right, get the populations right, and think outside the fence so that we can get these once thriving species back into the landscape. That's our big vision. And how we do that is similar, exactly what we're doing here with the Great Australian Wildlife Search in this presentation today. Is we want to get behind and empower and enable Australians to have a go for saving species. It can be quite intimidating, I think, for a lot of people to get involved in conservation and especially threatened species recovery, but we've got to get more people having a go, and we've got to find more. We've got to find those people who can find the solution to foxes, and who knows where that's going to come from, but we need more people having a go, and we need more revenue streams. And if we can do that, we think we'll be on the right track to have that vision realised. And just back on that point, that's the point of what this presentation here is today. It's not that we want to run a national monitoring program. It's we can see the power of this eDNA to support you to do what you want to do. We're a very small team. I think we'll always stay a small team. Our job is to uncover projects and ideas that can be scaled and others can grab and run with. So maybe the way to look at it is we de-risk, come up with ideas, see who wants to support it, and how do we de-risk it so that others can pick it up and run with it. This is our home base sanctuary. So I just talked about Tiverton. That was our second sanctuary. This is our home base. That's a photo in the corner there of us getting additional funding for replacing our sanctuary fence, which was about 25 years old. And we got funding from the Victorian government and a few other great people to get that fence back up and running. But this is where we do our genetic work: eastern barred bandicoot, eastern beartine, bushstone curlew, eastern quoll. That's a southern brush-tailed rock wallaby in the bottom right there as well. So this is our home base from where we do our work. And we do think about genetics a lot, which is again how the driver for eDNA came about. Is we want to make sure these animals are robust. We don't want to know, and then we want to know where they are, and then we want to get them out across the landscape back in their home distributions. And so the areas of focus, and then I'll get to this eDNA under wildlife, but that business of biodiversity, there's two things I want to talk to you about today, which is the business of biodiversity, how do we get more money? And then two is the wildlife. So how do you support more nature-focused projects? And that's this eDNA touches on both of those, in that with wildlife, we use eDNA to know where wildlife are, but also there's a way to be able to package up these eDNA kits to be able to find more funds for you. And those two are awesome. Is there a business here that we can uncover that helps you to raise funds to do the work you need to do? But a lot of our projects are focused on the business of biodiversity. We do lots of entrepreneurial projects to uncover business models. So we've got a bit of a license to try things, which is a bit of a different focus to a lot of not-for-profits. So then with wildlife, our focus is where are they? We then focus on who are they? Are their genetics? Make sure they're strong, they're strong enough and healthy enough. And then where will they be in the future? Talking about outside the fence. So developing spatial distribution models, which again is key for this eDNA. So for us, eDNA fits into that. Where are they? If you look at all the databases of wildlife distribution across the nation, it's all based on people having funding to go out and do an assessment here or an assessment there. And that could have been 20 years ago. This could have been 10 years ago. So money is a big limiting factor. The amount of expertise you need to go and do monitoring of different types of animals in different locations is high. Whereas eDNA has the ability for us to be able to sample the whole nation relatively cheaply and with high confidence, utilising citizen science. To us, that is really exciting. It's not perfect, but there is a revolution, and this is what I want to promote and think through with yourselves. There's something here. There's something here we can see, which is why we're putting our energy and time into this. And we don't know exactly where it needs to go, but we want to raise up the idea to you to say there's something here in the data, and you better utilize this, that we all should be jumping onto. What is it? Can we uncover and unpack that together? So back in, I think, 2022, the platypus was listed as vulnerable in Victoria. And that's when Andrew Weeks, the geneticist, said to us, hey, you know, there's never really been a really statewide survey where platypus are in Victoria. Why don't we use this eDNA? We think it's ready. Why don't we do a statewide assessment? And I used to be part of the Index of Stream Condition program in Victorian government, which looked at river health. So I understand the waterway program really well. And we didn't really have a biodiversity focus other than macroinvertebrates. And so I'm ringing up all my former colleagues in Victorian government, and they said, look, we've already been thinking about this. If you guys are going to have a crack at it, let's share it and go for it. And that's what we did. So we rolled out roughly 2,000 sites in 2022 across Victoria, which we still think, and no one has corrected me, but I still think it's the largest wildlife search in the world and the largest citizen science project in the world. Again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it was really, really exciting and really well received by our citizens. And we had about 600 people do that. And I did say the word revolution, but Andrew Weeks is a hard person to get excited. And he's the one who said, we are dealing with a revolution here. And for him to say the word revolution, it just pricked up my ears to say, wow, we really have something here. And I'm going to go through some of the data with you in a second, but we really do have something here that we haven't fully grasped what it is. So we've got these 2,000 sites now across Victoria, and we did another 320 or so across the Murray-Darling Basin just the last spring season. And so we've got nearly 2,500 sites that we are now unpacking and wanting to understand, what does this data mean compared to electrofishing or other monitoring programs? To have data at such a scale is really exciting. And we're going to use that hopefully to benefit you as well around how you could apply this at your Landcare level, not only for the data, but also how you can use it again for fundraising. So here's the dots of all the samples. So we did a lot of PR, and the media took this up really well. It's really exciting. And citizens could pick 3 sites, and we've got a stack of photos. I think the next slide has them, of people out in the waterway with their family. They got a little pack sent to them in the post, and they went out on a weekend and took some water samples, and that got posted off to the lab in Melbourne and analysed. The benefits we're talking about: presence and absence, and so that's not only of wildlife, but also Australian wildlife, but also feral animals. It was done by citizens. We did have a few parks people get involved because they're very excited, but mainly it was the public who, either through Waterwatch, we gave Waterwatch the chance to get some sites, and also schools. We preferenced those groups to start with, and then we opened it up to the broader public. Everyone loved it, just this ability to collect high quality data that's going to be used and useful. There's something really powerful in there. And we still hadn't got the whole story around how it's going to be used, which we're still working on. But even with not having that, we still got such great uptake. People could see the power of this and how exciting it would be. The data is going to be all available for free. That's definitely a focus of ours, and we'll put it on the Victorian Biodiversity Atlas, etc. And this 4th dot point is where we need to unpack more, and love to have that discussion with you. It's the so what. How do you unlock further action? So you've got citizens out there taking samples like they do with Waterwatch, but how do you, when you know you've got a platypus, or we're trying to think of an iconic Western Australian animal. I know there's no platypus in WA, but now that you know there's this species here and you help collect that data, you've got this ownership to it. How do you then encourage action, whether that's by a citizen, by a business, by government, by anyone? So this revolution idea of how do you use this data to understand distribution of wildlife and use that to get people excited to take action or to support your work. So that's where we're moving to more and more, and hence, again, today's presentation. So here's some photos of people out and about. And you can see the syringe there on the bottom left. So you get posted out this syringe, and then on the top there is a filter that circle there, which is what you push the water through about 10 times. So about 500 mils of water goes through there, and all the dirt and DNA gets picked up. And then you, again, simply put a bit of preservative in it and post it off. And we make sure, we do a lot of assessment to figure out where sites are that are accessible. That's a key thing, making sure it's accessible on public land that you can get onto. We build an app that people can jump on and verify their sites, take some photos, and confirm that they've gone to the location that we've allocated for them to go to. Who decides where the sites are? That's, if you're paying for it or others are paying for it, it's maybe they decide. But for a statewide rollout, we wanted to pick the sites to make sure we had a statewide even sort of distribution across Victoria. But if we're talking to businesses or others or yourselves, and you're paying for it or they're paying for it, maybe there's a way that you just be flexible where that is, and the more data we get, the better. Or maybe you target to areas, and what we'll do next time in Victoria, especially in the Murray-Darling, is you go to areas where something interesting was found or something you should have found wasn't there, and you want to go dig in and do more. So the sites we actually go to, there's a lot of discussion to be had around how you decide that. So out of the data, we had just under 1,734 unique sites, so 4,070 samples. We detected platypus across 20% of those sites, which is great. So a lot of it confirmed the data from previous decades of monitoring as well. 18,000, nearly 19,000 taxa, vertebrate taxa, and a number of threatened species as well. So it's not going to detect all threatened species, given that threatened species are hard to find, and it also relies on the animals going to the waterway to be able to drop their fur or skin, or to be able to drop the DNA into the water. So a lot of it's around timing. So we do it in spring or autumn, mainly spring. That's when there's most water available, and that's when animals are most likely to be out and about and engaging with the waterway. And this is the type of data that you're able to get from it. And the bigger the circle, the more species have been identified. And you can zoom in. I won't be able to do it today, but you can zoom into each of these and get a species list, including feral animals as well, across the state, which is unbelievable. And we've been comparing against the Victorian Biodiversity Atlas as well, and just figuring out what this means compared to other methods out there, and getting the scientists to understand the data. But this very soon will be available publicly, and you'll be able to jump in and zoom in and out and have a look as well. Here's a list of threatened species that we've identified as well, from fish, amphibians, reptiles, and mammals. Definitely the fish and amphibians we pick up really well. The question would be around how often mammals and even birds are interacting with the waterway, and that will be a limitation on how many animals you do end up finding. But again, that's why we choose spring, to increase the chances of identification. But again, compared to having to get scientists out on site who are all with different expertise in identification, and there's always limitations in that monitoring assessment as well. There's always trade-offs with all these methods, but in terms of a citizen science data collection tool that is robust and reliable, it's looking very, very good. And this one's a bit more depressing, with some of the feral animals here we've got as well. But this is, I guess, the most common taxa, with the carp being the biggest, and cows and deers running around a lot in Victoria as well. So, you've no doubt I'm happy to take questions around the data. I am not the expert in the method and how it works, but I'm happy to take questions. I'll try my best as well. But we are suggesting that for spring this year, that we'd love to work with 3 Landcare groups in WA to unpack how you could promote and use eDNA kits to sell to businesses, to interested parties, to donors, to philanthropists, to get your region sampled, and then have additional funds allocated in that to spend on projects that you want. Half the cost goes to eDNA, half goes to some recovery projects that you're working on. We'd love to package that up, I guess. Aim for spring this year, as I said, and fundraise for those on-ground works. It's probably good I'm wrapping up. My voice is running out, Jack and Case. But what we want to do is also have an annual State of the Environment report We can do that annually. Imagine the power of that to be able to support you to fundraise to do this. We'll be fundraising as well. It's a lot of what we do to get more sites sampled. But our goal is to have thousands of sites sampled every year that we can give a live state of the environment report. Questions?
Fantastic, Sam. If you want to stop sharing the screen so we can see who's got their hands up, Case can direct some questions, or you can take them directly yourself. That was great. It's a fantastic breakthrough. I think it's a revolution. I'm just trying to think of the creatures that we could potentially find out so much more about around our huge state. So yes. Questions from the floor, comments on the program, the opportunity for a pilot. I know we've got funding body here. Deb Slater-Lee joined us, and Joe Woodbridge, I believe, joined us as well. And I'm wondering if you'd like to hear a state sort of small grant proposal at some point, ladies. I'll leave that with you while Caroline has a question there.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Sam, I was wondering whether you could comment on the usefulness of the reference libraries for WA. So there's been some comment that eDNA is only as good as the reference libraries are, so the information that we've got to analyse against. Do you know anything about what we've got on WA species?
I don't know specifically. I know it's getting better. I know CSIRO are doing a lot of work on the reference library. I don't know how good it is. I know Victoria, New South Wales is really good. I just don't know about WA. So someone here might know better than me. But I don't think it'd be the worst. And also you can keep them frozen for a number of years, samples.
Yeah. And can you do the genetics? So if you were doing an investigation on a specific species, so say Carter's mussel or Rukali or something, can you do the genetics specifically for that species to ensure that you've got that information for when you collect the samples?
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we did with the platypus. We made sure that we could identify the platypus really well. So if you've got key species, we just make sure that they're focused.
Yeah. And what sort of costs are involved in the lab analysis? So you did all those 2,000 samples. Is it a huge cost for lab analysis?
We're trying to get it down, but it's roughly $400 a site. So that's 2 samples, which includes postage, all the kit, and analysis.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I'll leave it to somebody else.
Debbie's just written in the chat, how could we do possums and kangaroos? Do they need to go to the water? I would assume yes.
That's right. That's with all animals. They need to go in the water and interact somehow, take a drink or fly over, drop something, their skin or bird or poo, in order for it to be in the water.
And Alex has just said, this is quite a good question, is it only for fauna?
Yes. Yep. Flora. A whole nother discussion. Definitely something we're looking into. Air DNA. So trapping this through air samples, we're looking into as well. The question would be, with air, how do you attribute it to a location? Where does air come from? That's probably the tricky thing. But the plants, definitely something we haven't looked into too far.
John from Friends of Ocean Reef, Luca Forshaw has said, for using the water to survey terrestrial animals, would it be better to sample in the summer when animals are more likely to come to drink from streams?
A great question. There's a balance of water, how much water's in waterways and animal movement. So yeah, no doubt out and about probably maybe a bit more, but is there enough water to give more confidence in when people go out there that there's water flowing or water available to take the sample as well? So a trade-off. There'll be a trade-off there. And this probably is better in WA to go a bit later.
Potentially, yeah. Debbie, just to answer your question about cost, I believe it was a test kit, and that takes 2 samples, is $400, yes? And that includes the analysis as well.
That's right. And we're trying to get that down. That we pay for a part-time manager for the whole nation. So that helps cover it. So the more sites we get, the less don't have to charge. So it's just a balance, roughly about 400, but we could get it cheaper, hopefully, and hopefully over time it does get cheaper with the analysis as well.
And yeah, thanks, Shane. We'll be sending out a copy of Sam's presentation today, but Shane just wanted to know a little bit more about the summary of the pilot project, and could he have a little bit of a chat to you and discuss what that might look like for his Landcare group?
I'd love to, and we're just still getting the approvals from VicGov they help fund a third of it, and we just want to honour them in releasing the data. So we're doing a lot of poring over the data at the moment, and would love to release all the information we will, but maybe there's stuff we can talk about on the phone as well to give you more background.
Great. Lots of love for the Ricali, lots of love heart emojis going in about that species being a potential to test for. We all love our water rats here. Yes. I can't quite see that question. Oh, is there a species limit on the $400 test?
No, it'd be it's purely that back to Carolyn's first question about the reference library. If it's in the reference library and it's there in reality, and we do sample it, it'll pick it up.
Right. And Caitlin Dowse has just said Curtin University did an interesting study analysing spider webs for eDNA.
I heard about that. That was recently, wasn't it? There was an article about that. Amazing. And again, it's just another way to trap DNA, and using webs as, and I guess that's the sample of eDNA through the air that we're talking about. We had test tubes, or I don't remember what they're actually called. There's some sort of trapping apparatus with sticky stuff on it. I'm not in the detail of that one, but as long as you can trap the DNA somehow, you can analyze it.
Amazing. Debbie's just saying she's part of 2 environmental groups in Mandurah and the Perth Peel region, and she'd be really keen to get this happening for spring. So lots of movement in the chat today. Bodhi's just mentioned, would you get a list back of unidentified DNA? If it's not in the library, would it still show up?
Yes, that's a really good point. And there's fragments as well. So how you piece it all together, again, a bit outside my knowledge, but I'd assume, yes, maybe there'd be this unidentified species. Really good question. I've not thought of that. I can chase that up.
Joe's just asked, what is the best way to become involved in the pilot project? I think as part of this wrap up, we'll probably take some next steps and potentially help Sam to produce an EOI for WA Landcare groups, and then put that out to our member base and see what comes of it. Does that sound good, Jack?
That's perfect, Case. That's the way that it will unfold, and the excitement is palpable. I mean, you're looking at bird life, dolphins and crabs in the estuaries around Mandurah. It'd be fabulous to see what's coming out of there, again, tested against what's in the reference library. Can I throw to a couple of wise elder people, wise elders in the community with lots of experience, to see if they've heard much about the quality of our reference libraries? Maybe Bruce, Keith, or Deb Slater-Lee, Joe. Has there been much work done on keeping those up to date? Bells and tumbleweeds, whistles, nothing happening. No one's heard much about the reference. I think that answers the question.
No, I don't think we know. But I bet you it's being updated pretty quickly as this tool takes off and more people start using it.
Is that like the chicken and the egg? You know, if we build it, we'll then build the reference library around the samples potentially.
Yeah, but the good news is the chicken has already crossed the road.
Can I make a comment? Tim Storer from the Healthy Rivers program commented on eDNA to me recently, saying that the challenge is having the genetic information. But if you decide to focus on some specific key indicator species in a river system, for example, you can get the geneticists to do the work on that. So yeah, it's building up that picture so that we have more information. And this type of citizen science becomes more useful.
Fantastic. And there's a question there, Sam, about dams, troughs on farmland. I guess it's as applicable there. Any water source is applicable?
Yeah, wetland. We do when we do site-based assessments for our sanctuaries, we definitely go dams. So The question is, what are you doing it for? And if dams are identified as a high value or a location that has water in the landscape, which waterways might not for whatever reason, then let's go for it. So the water does gather in the dam, I guess, just not as big or as flowing as a river, but there's still, it's still a great way to sample. I'm not sure about the troughs, so just be where the animals can get to it. Not all animals, I guess, will get to it, probably just the larger ones. But definitely dams and wetlands can.
And that might be really useful for a private landholder who's looking at, what species and what are they trying to protect on their property, and to have that information could be really useful.
Unbelievably useful. And another project we're working on is around farm scale environmental accounting, so natural capital accounting, and we're working to make that really cheap and useful for farmers. And imagine if you could take an eDNA sample as well every year and use that to demonstrate how you're working with nature. There's so much potential there.
Sam, can you comment at all on your work with Esperance Dallarack Rangers?
Yeah, very quickly. And I wanted to get a comment from the Dallarack crew, but I couldn't get it in time. But they've used this on a number of sites already, and I think hopefully we'll go again this season. But they saw the value of this at a landscape level as well, and been out taking samples. So we'll hopefully have results from their work soon as well. But they're, I guess, similar to what we're proposing here, is any group, anybody who wants to use this can just get in there and do it. You don't necessarily need to work with us, of course, we'd love you to, but anyone is so accessible. And if you've got some funding and then if you package that up, again, what we're talking about here, packaging it up as a value add to others who want to get involved in nature. Patagonia are a great supporter of ours with this program as well, and there's a number of other businesses. So I can see that this really balls in our court as conservationists and conservation organisations to package this up, because others want to participate, and it can be relatively cheap for them too, but there's so many benefits for us and for them. And then again, that idea that you can add a bit of extra dollars to those sites, which then you can utilise for on-ground work. So I think all of that can be packaged up so well.
I think Jane Townsend had a comment there, Case.
I'd have to, can you see that straight away? I'm just sitting on Joe's comment, which I thought was really valuable. The state NRM program community stewardship grants likely open in the next month, but the applications won't be announced until November for a project to start in 2025. So in terms of that spring release for the pilot might not work so well, but that's not to say that this couldn't be implemented next year too, right? It's not a hard and fast date.
No. So our job is to try and keep this thing alive. And, again, we're a small organisation. We've got this hope of the Great Australian Wildlife Search, and we're finding as many different ways as we can to get sampling done, thousands of samples done across the nation. And we've resourced ourselves at least to keep this open and have discussions like this to see if we can make it work. So we're here for the long haul. Yeah.
That's pretty exciting. I'm really glad I got you to study, Jack, because I can't keep up with all the chat that's going, but there's just to let you know, Sam, there's lots of interest. I think when we do the upload of the recording, we can actually upload the chat as well. So that might be really valuable, just so we can make sure that we're getting back to everybody.
So we go to Jane Townsend now, and then Bruce Ivers.
Hi, sorry, this is a bit of a dumb question because it's the first time I've heard about this, but the eDNA, that gives you an indication of what sort of species are in a particular area. Does it also give you an indication of the amount of species as well? Can it detect? Is that a dumb question? But
that's a great question, Jane. It just takes a while to unpack. The question is around abundance. So you do get quantities of DNA, and we're just after presence, absence. So there's a lot of discussions of what is a presence. Are 3 strands of a DNA presence? Are 4 or 5? When is it present? And then the other end is having a heap of DNA mean there's a lot of this animal or animals, or is it more that the platypus was swimming for a long time in one spot, and it was just one animal, just with a lot of DNA being released somehow. So the abundance question, not so much. but that's something I think the scientists are working on. But definitely presence absence is the main goal. And for us, when we're doing these statewide or larger scale assessments, it'd be to confirm where things are and aren't, so we can do more work. So it should be go out and do a more thorough traditional monitoring program in areas where you do or don't see an animal that you wanted to see or didn't want to see. So it's just purely presence and absence at the moment, but maybe over time the abundance question will come in as we understand the data better.
Bruce has got his hand up there, Mr. Ivers.
G'day, Sam. Good to see you again.
Do
I'm thinking of school groups that I take out to the countryside, Sam, and I wonder how geographically tight you want to keep your samples, or are you happy to get them from various places where I happen to be with a group of school kids?
I guess the reason why I'm pausing is that idea of a revolution. Who are we? So we usually apply for a grant. Somebody somewhere else has said, hey, there's money to do something in this area. Somebody's decided that. Who decides where you go and sample for why, for what reason? Who knows? There's many different answers. If the state want to do statewide sampling, if someone has a particular focus on the northwest corner of WA and they've got a passion for it because that's where they grow up and they want to fund it, good on them. Or if a school wants to so it's this why is, I get the bigger philosophical question to have. But if people want to pay for it or be part of it and focus, good on them. The more data, the better. But if you're going from a statewide strategic, we need it to inform policy, we need it for you to inform your landscape level actions. That'll be a different why versus getting students out there to assess a waterway that they really love and have 10 years of data that the kids are all excited by. And every year the grade 7 gets to go out. The grade 7 group get to go out and monitor and use the previous year's data to understand what's going on. So not a very concise answer, Bruce, but I guess that comes back to that idea of a revolution. Who gets to decide where data is collected and for what reason? And with this relatively cheap, high quality method, that's up for discussion. It's really exciting to think through.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Just taking the school kids idea a step further, there's quite a number of reserves that we go to which don't have a lot of flowing water in them. Typically, many of the reserves in the wheat belt are granite outcrops, which are right at the top of the landscape. So unless you happen to be there when it's raining, there's not a lot of water flowing. What can we do to get DNA samples from those sorts of drier sites? And I'm thinking for animals like the numbat, which is WA's animal symbol, and also the woylie, which is a very important role to play in the landscape. So how do we get to find out where they are?
A great question. It could be eDNA, could be the simple answer there. Or you are on the ready for when it does rain. You're pushing my boundaries of knowledge or ideas there, Bruce, but it's a really good one. Water is the way that DNA is moved. And if you've got lack of water, what do you do? There probably are some answers there, but I need to think on that a bit more. But it could be wait for the rain or eDNA, and we're happy to do a few more pilots. We're doing it at Mount Rothwell, and definitely something to explore. Yeah,
because it's things like the woylie where there's a reserve or two around in the wheat belt, and people are thinking, well, are there any woylies left in there? I mean, we don't really know at this stage, so that'd be the kind of thing I'd love to get kids involved in, where they're actually out doing some sort of leading edge research.
Can I throw to Keith there too, because I think you've got a comment there, Keith, because there's been some work on scats and Gunnar.
Oh, yes. The fecophiliac here. Water is the easy one, and you've got to remember, Bruce, that a number of animals will drink at the nammer holes left on those granites and so on. So that's a good start. But find an eagle's nest and walk around underneath and pick up all their cough drops, or where an owl's been roosting. That'll often turn up stuff. And I like the spider web story. Animals brush past things. So what you're looking for is a trace of where an animal might leave a trace. Water's the easy one, but if you haven't got water, there's a few other things you can try.
Thanks, Keith. I like your whatever it was celiac thing. That was good.
Well, it used to be you had to break them down and look in them for jawbones and everything, but nowadays you just put the cough drops in an envelope and send them over to Sam.
We'll throw to Caroline and then Dave Broadhurst and then move back to the chat column.
I'm sorry, I've got lots of questions. Sam, can you talk a little bit more about your fundraising idea for this pilot? I don't really understand if, you know, these $400 kits, you're talking about selling them. How could Landcare groups make money out of that? And who are you selling them to? Because isn't it the Landcare groups who'd want to buy them?
That's right. Great question. And this is all a bit untested, but for some reason, Patagonia and a few others, I can't remember the names of the other organisations, they wanted to participate. And we talk with businesses all the time. We've got a pitching program on Thursday at Mount Rothwell with 20 organisations who want to work with nature. They don't know what that means. And we've said to them, well, we should buy eDNA kits and go out and sample and understand what's locally around your business to then understand how you could do something to support priority species. So, but what that means specifically, we're still not sure. And businesses haven't been presented with something, I don't think, so tangible either. So for us, and a lot of what I do in life is not, I don't put the no in other people's mouths straight away. It's let's package it up and put it out there to see what they say. So my rough thinking, and this is very unsophisticated, is that you're selling sites for $1,000 to local council, to the local vet, the elders, to whoever in your community, and saying, hey, our target is 50 sites. We want to raise $50,000. That's going to monitor their site. You can get involved, bring your staff. We'll come and talk to you around how great this community is, the wildlife we expect to find. We'll come and help take the samples with you. Or you pay it forward. You want to support the school? Why don't you buy 3 kits for grade 7 to go out and take a sample and really support them, knowing that some of the funds are also going to our top 3 restoration projects. You know, half of that or more could be for your projects, for whatever you want to do. So to me, it's a bit of marketing. Maybe that's basically it, and putting it out there to see who's interested. That's all I've been doing the last 2 years, is annoying people, making a PDF and saying how great it is, getting them excited, and one in 20 reply and say we're interested. And I think it's about us, and that's what we're willing to do, is whoever's willing to have a crack and put their hand up, we can do some of that heavy lifting as well and go out and test to see who's willing to buy this. But in a way, it's the same sort of effort as you put in to write a grant that we were just talking about then. There's a grant opportunity. Someone said, hey, I've got some money. Can you tell me what it is? You got to write it up, and they've still got to say yes to it. But here it's around, how do you take control of the funding that you need? And I can see it can be packaged up with this eDNA kits somehow. I probably got the wrong idea. There's probably another variation here that you're all better at place to figure out what's useful. But I think what you're selling is cool and exciting, and people want to be involved, and businesses I know want to be involved. Not every one of them, and I don't think it's about getting every one of them, but there's something here that you've got that we can package up and promote and see if we can raise those funds.
Sounds
Thanks
good.
to me, Sam, that having a large pilot project in WA might be quite exciting to some philanthropists that you might be talking to on Thursday. So potentially you could drop in that you're already having those conversations in WA and see if you get any uptake there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I often think the ball is again in our court as the conservation sector to be packaging things up and giving access and opportunity to people. And it's not just grants that we can get money from. There's more money than ever in the conservation space before. And there's businesses and people and councils that want to do stuff, and they've got money, probably not a stack of it, but enough to I reckon spend some time and spend a year or 2 testing. Maybe after year 2 we go, this is a waste of time, let's stop. But this is our job. We need to uncover more projects like this that hopefully can scale across the nation and get on and support you and others to do what you know you need to do.
Thanks, Sam. We'll go to Dave Broadhurst from Perth NRM.
Good afternoon, everyone, and congratulations, Sam. And I wouldn't worry too much about failing forward. I think all the information that we can get, and as we improve as we go forward, it's all valuable, and it all sort of sorts itself out. Now, my conversation has probably gone lost in the last conversation. I just wanted to value add to what Keith said previously about using other methods for DNA testing. I recently submitted an application with Curtin Uni to do eDNA, so looking at insects, capturing insects, creating a little soup out of it, and then you can actually look for DNA on insect DNA. It's not as, the resolution is not as fine, but if from a planning perspective, understanding that somewhere within a 2 to 3 kilometre radius is your target species. For me, it was feral animals and bandicoot, chuditch. So, yeah, there's a lot of opportunities out there as far as utilising this technology.
I agree. I've heard of 3 other methods, like a pitfall trap for insects, and as you say, mash them up, send them off, and you can get that analysed as well. I think there's 2 others that I heard of, and overall it's about $1,000 to analyse all that data. But it's the so what are you going to do with it, etc. And they're the things we want to explore more of. But the ability to analyse this has never been around. I guess it's, again, that idea of a revolution. What do we want to do? How do we package it up? Who's paying for it? How are we going to use it?
It's so important. There's so little money around at the moment for specific things, and the better we can plan and target our operations, the better. And this is a really good tool or a key to making sure that we're doing best effort. So,
And can I note that there's some great questions and answers going on in the chat, and thank you so much to State NRM for being here, and to Joe Woodbridge for answering those questions about waiting and looking at what could potentially get funded, and that question of what's the most useful to know in urban areas. Is it about knowing what the priority species are there, or the feral animals are there? Where's the greatest value? And I guess that comes down to the design of your project and what the outcomes you're looking for. But I guess, Sam, you're going to end up with potentially a lot more information than you've gone looking for, aren't you? That's what we're hearing, is you're looking for a particular thing, and of course you get this potentially a whole lot of information back.
Yes. And yeah, what do you do with that? And I guess the question's always got to be, why are you collecting in this first place? And maybe the first year or two, definitely for us, is because no one's done it this sort of scale before and utilised it and seen the multiple benefits around citizen science as well. So we want to learn, but I think in the next year or two, we'll be able to nail that very quickly around, it's for before and after monitoring, or it's for broad scale condition monitoring, or it's for helping to identify where we should hunt further for certain species. So those answers are coming. We've just got to keep going out there and monitoring, and also I think that business model concept, I think, is so key to this. It's so accessible. How do we use it? It is a marketing tool for us, and the ball's in our court to go for it. And again, that's why we're here as Odonata, is to explore these very ideas, which are useful data, but also a way for you and others to make money.
There's a technical question here from Debbie Flay again. With a large body of water like an estuary, do you have different spots to do the tests on, because otherwise you get dilution of your DNAs in the samples?
Great question. We did do a few estuaries in Victoria, and I think we just chose the more freshwater area of the estuary. So I think closer up, because I think then you start getting mixing in marine species, and there is a marine DNA program. I think who's funding that? Somebody. What's their name? But we definitely kept it to fresh water, so it would have been more to move further upstream from the estuary. I assume is how we did that. Can't remember exactly now. But yeah, the more water you have, it's diluted. So the bigger the waterway, probably the harder it is to identify the species.
That makes sense. Alex Hegarty has asked if there's an opportunity for individuals to be involved who are not necessarily part of organisations. Can an individual, for example, buy some kits and go out and get involved?
Yes. Again, we can't put the no in other people's mouths, but if they want to pay $400 and buy it as a Christmas present for their children or their parents or something, good. let's package it up with $1,000, whatever it is. So I think we've tried to package this up. We tried it last season and it just was a little bit tricky to deliver for Murray-Darling Basin and sell to individuals. But that's where we're heading, is to just have it available on a website for people to buy whenever they want. And they know just before spring, a little package arrives in the mail and it says, you're an amazing person. Thank you for purchasing your kit for 2024. Enjoy your family day out to go and monitor. And we appreciate you. And hey, here's a little flyer for our Landcare group. Come join us. So there's no reason, and where they sample and why, who knows, but I don't think we have to put a boundary on that just yet. We can, all we do is package it up and put it out there and test to see who wants to be part of this.
One last technical question, then I want to go back up the chat a bit, but freshwater only is, what happens in the saltwater environment?
I'm not sure. I'm a bit embarrassed. I don't really know what's happening in the marine space, but we are biased, I guess, to the terrestrial areas anyway. So no doubt it's possible. I just have not put my head to it, and I know there is work happening, and I apologise. I think you can do a quick Google to see who's having a crack at that.
If I could jump in quickly, Sam. Yep, being used in saltwater for fish, coral spawn, all sorts of things. So thankfully for WA, the saltiness of the water doesn't seem to make a difference.
That's good, Keith. Thank you. Shane's talking about swabbing the entrance to nesting boxes, which is another great idea to see what's moving in and out of nesting boxes. So, is all the data being stored in one central location? Families doing their own sampling. Is the location and species detected saved?
Yep. So we want it on whatever database will fit it. So VBA in Victoria, the Australian, what's it called? The Atlas. Come on, someone help me. But wherever we can put it, we'll put it. The question is whether it can take it at the moment. So we're having to force the VBA around a bit to fit it in. But we'll put it on all the state-based databases. It's all publicly available. The answer, we want it out there.
Ma'am, any other questions? Oh, yeah, looks like there's one more here. Keith just said, just wanted to underline a point Sam has made, that tools like eDNA puts the data in local hands. Same with the bird sampling approach Nick Dunlop developed. With the Commonwealth and a number of large private entities looking to profit from biodiversity credits, I think it's really important to have tools that can be used locally in local project areas. Love that, Pete. That's a really good point. Was there any other questions at all? We're pretty much bang on time. I do love that. I just wanted to say a huge thank you for such a great turnout today. There's obviously a lot of interest in this subject, and I'm glad that we were able to provide this talk for you, and hopefully you've got a lot out of it. I certainly can see a lot of opportunity here for us in WA, and I thank Sam for providing that information to us. I'll make sure that you get everything you need in terms of what's been put into the chat, and anyone that's interested in learning more. For our next Landcare amazing events, we have something scheduled for the 27th of March, which is our first hot topic forum, where we're taking a deep dive into natural capital accounting and nature positive, which kind of talks to this subject a little bit too, for landcarers and the wider environmental community. We've got some great guest speakers. Be sure to jump over to our Humanitics page or our socials for more information there. And our next Landcare Checks In is being held on Tuesday, the 9th of April, where we'll be talking to some team members from Keep Australia Beautiful WA and the people at Worrell or Containers for Change about the funding and program opportunities that exist for community landcare groups. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'll look forward to seeing you all soon. Debbie, did you have one more question? No, you're all good? I could see you.
I just wanted to say too, Case, I've just been taking some summary notes from the chat group, and I think we've got a pilot. We've certainly got 4 keenly interested groups, and we'll be in touch with them directly afterwards. You'll all get a package about the presentation, but there certainly will be that opportunity and an EOI coming your way in the next couple of weeks to see how quickly we can get something together for spring, because we're striking while the iron's hot. And then, of course, for all of you, we might get together again later in the year and look to those opportunities for next year. And we'll be keeping a close eye on this space, because I think once we start seeing the pilot and the outcomes and groups getting into partnerships with corporates and others and local government and others, all the opportunities that are there, there's going to be some great stories to tell. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, great.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks very much. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.